I was halfway through making coffee when my phone buzzed. A message from Claire, someone I hadn't heard from in nearly a decade. It simply read, "Hannah, is this real?" Below was a link to a GoFundMe campaign. The title hit me like a punch to the gut. "In loving memory of Hannah Lee. Help us honor her legacy." My thumb hovered over the link. Then I tapped. There it was, my name, my face, my obituary. They'd used my college graduation photo, the one where I was smiling like I believed life might finally be fair. The page was flooded with comments. "She was so bright, so kind, gone too soon. My prayers are with the Lee family." And at the top, $40,328 raised of a $45,000 goal. Organizer, Margaret Lee, my mother. The description told a complete lie. Hannah Lee, beloved daughter and sister, died last year in a car accident overseas. They claimed my remains had been cremated and that I'd always wanted a simple memorial. There was even a poem, generic and hollow, a cliché meant to sound heartfelt. I leaned against the fridge, feeling cold all over. I wasn't dead. I was standing there, breathing, shaking, alive, and yet, in their world, I was already buried. For a second, I thought it must be a mistake, a cruel prank, maybe, a case of mistaken identity, but the photos, the timeline, no, this was deliberate, this was their doing. I clicked the Updates tab. Margaret had posted 5 times over the last 6 months, detailing how the funds would go toward a scholarship in my name. Hannah's Light, she called it. Ethan, my brother, even wrote a message. She always gave without asking. Now we give in her honor. I almost dropped my phone. This wasn't mourning. It wasn't grief. It was exploitation. They hadn't just erased me, they'd monetized my absence. I scrolled back to the top of the page. There, in bold black font, it read, "Forever in our hearts, but never far from home." A bitter laugh escaped me. They had no idea how close to home I really was, because I was alive. And now I wasn't just going to haunt them, I was coming back. It didn't begin with the funeral, it began with $15,000 and a lie. 3 years ago, Ethan, my younger brother, was barely scraping by in college. He told my parents someone had hacked into his account and drained his tuition funds. He cried, trembled, played the victim so convincingly that even I almost believed him. But then I checked the records. The charges weren't from hackers, they were from poker sites, sports betting apps, one after another. When I showed my parents the evidence, I thought they'd want the truth. Instead, I got silence, then anger, not at Ethan, but at me. "Do you want to ruin his life?" My mother snapped. "He made a mistake. You're blowing this out of proportion. You're always jealous of the attention he gets." That last part cut deep, but what stung most was what she said the night she packed up my things. "Better one ruined child than 2. My father didn't say a word. He stood by the door with his hands in his pockets, like he'd already made up his mind that I didn't belong in the house I helped pay for. I didn't take everything with me. I left behind framed pictures, high school trophies, and a handwritten letter I once gave my mom on her birthday. None of it mattered. The next morning, I was gone. Not by choice, not exactly. I left because staying meant surrendering to a version of myself that existed only in their shadow. For the longest time, I thought they'd eventually reach out. Maybe, just maybe, someone would ask for the truth, but no one did. No phone calls, no apologies, just silence. Silence so long it began to feel like grief. But now I understood. They weren't grieving, they were rewriting. And I had become the girl who vanished, conveniently dead, conveniently gone, so they could move on, so they could start over, so they could profit from the sister who once tried to protect her brother and got erased for it. I didn't disappear overnight. Disappearing takes time. It started with switching my phone to silent, then turning it off, then tossing it in a drawer and pretending it didn't buzz anymore. I moved 3 states away, rented a room above a bookstore where no one knew my name, worked nights at a diner and days at a thrift shop. No social media, no trace. I paid in cash when I could, lived small, ate simply. I told myself I was starting fresh. Maybe this was freedom, but freedom didn't always feel like fresh air. Sometimes it felt like dust in my throat. There were nights I stared at the ceiling, wondering if I was overreacting. Maybe I should have stayed, maybe I exaggerated, but the voice that always answered was quiet and honest. They didn't fight for you, not once. So, I stayed gone. For 3 years, I watched my life fade from memory. I stopped being Hannah and became the girl with the green apron or Unit 4B, and even then, a part of me still clung to something childlike, a belief that family might heal in silence. That time, distance, maybe even guilt would bring them back to me. But the GoFundMe changed everything. It wasn't just that they moved on. It was how they did it. They didn't just let go. They filled the hole I left with praise, with poetry, with profit. They turned my absence into a cause. And now the world, my old classmates, our church community, even my childhood piano teacher, believed I was dead because that's what they were told, that I died, that I left a legacy, that I was generous, graceful, gone, but I wasn't gone, I was just inconvenient, and for them, dead was easier than difficult. I thought being erased would feel louder, but it started quietly. I tried to reset an old email tied to my student loans, something I hadn't touched in years. Instead of a verification code, I got a message, account deactivated due to a report of user decease. At first, I thought it was a glitch. Then I logged into Facebook. My profile had been memorialized. A banner at the top read, "Remembering Hannah Lee." There were comments, candles, prayers. And then I knew, this wasn't just forgetting me, this was erasing me completely. One post from a high school classmate read, "You were always the one who smiled at everyone." I hadn't died, but someone had decided I should be remembered. Still calm, still skeptical, I logged into my DMV account. I needed to renew my license. Just another errand, or so I thought. The screen froze, then flashed red. Error. Record flagged as deceased. Contact vital records. That's when the cold crept up my spine. I called. The clerk was polite until she checked my file. "Ms. Lee, we have your record as deceased. Cause of death, vehicular incident filed in Bonner County, Idaho. Idaho. My family owned a cabin there, isolated, quiet, easy to hide from. I requested a copy of the death certificate. It arrived 2 days later. A real document. Watermarked, sealed, signed. Name, Hannah Lee. Date of death, July 16th, cause, car accident overseas. Unrecovered body. Filed by Margaret Lee. Mother. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time. Lights off. The certificate glowed under the stove light. The signature was unmistakable, my mother's. The woman who used to braid my hair before Sunday school had filed my death like a tax form, neat, clean, efficient. No hospital records, no funeral notices, just a forged line on a quiet form in a remote county. It wasn't just betrayal. It was bureaucracy. And it was accepted. Not because it was true, but because no one thought to question it. I looked down at the embossed seal, perfect and final. In that moment, I realized, this wasn't mourning. It was manufacturing. They didn't just bury me. They filed me away. They weren't done, though. I thought the fake obituary was the last of it, the final insult sealed in Government Incorporated, but when I checked the GoFundMe again, a new update had been posted 2 days earlier. We're proud to announce the launch of the Hannah Lee Memorial Scholarship. The money, over $40,000, will now be used to fund an annual award at her old high school. Margaret wrote, she always believed in lifting others up. Now her spirit will help others rise. There was even a ceremony scheduled this Saturday, the auditorium open to the public. Speakers listed, Margaret Lee, Ethan Lee, the school principal, and one student who'd been chosen as the first recipient of Hannah's Light. I stared at the screen, numb. Then I clicked the comment section. So beautiful. She would have loved this. At least her death meant something. That comment broke me. I hadn't meant nothing when I was alive. I worked 2 jobs to help pay the mortgage. I gave up grad school to keep Ethan from failing out. I stayed silent while they dismantled me. And now they were turning my silence into virtue, my absence into legacy. They used my name like a brand, sold my death like a cause, and made themselves the heroes of a tragedy. They wrote no more. I closed the laptop. This wasn't grief. It was theater. And if they wanted a performance, I was going to give them one. I started with what I had, an expired passport with stamps from cities no obituary ever mentioned. Lease agreements signed in ink, not memory. Tax filings, pay stubs, photos with timestamps, GPS data, proof that I existed, not as a ghost, but as a woman working quietly to survive. Then I dug deeper. Screenshots of the memorial page, bank records linked to the GoFundMe, the death certificate forged and filed, and finally, a screenshot of a text Margaret had sent me just 6 months ago. "If you ever come back, you'll ruin everything." That one I printed twice. I packed the folder tight and made an appointment through a nonprofit that helped with identity theft. The receptionist didn't ask many questions. 2 days later, I sat across from a man named Mr. Finch, a lawyer who'd seen scams, lies, and family betrayals before, but not like this. He flipped through the documents in silence, his brow tightening with every page. When he got to the death certificate, he exhaled deeply. "You're challenging your own death." "Yes," I said. "This could go federal." "It should." He looked up. "Why now?" I leaned forward, calm and controlled. "Because I'm not going to stay buried. And I'm not doing this just to be alive again. I want the world to know what they did." He nodded slowly, then smiled, a rare, dangerous smile. "Then let's bring you back to life officially." By the end of the day, we filed a fraud complaint and a motion to revoke the certificate. But this wasn't just legal paperwork anymore. It was the opening line of a story I was finally ready to tell. In my voice, on my terms, they had erased me. Now I was writing myself back in. The sky was pale gray that morning. Fitting, I thought, the kind of color that doesn't commit to storm or sun. I stood across the street from the auditorium. From where I stood, I could see the banners strung across the front doors, "In loving memory, the Hannah Lee Memorial Scholarship Ceremony." People filtered in slowly. Parents, students, faculty, all dressed in black. Some held flowers, others printed programs. Inside, they were lighting candles. I knew that space well. I'd sung in that auditorium, spoken at graduations, cleaned the floors for extra credit. Now they were using it to bury me all over again. I waited until the last person went in before crossing. I kept my coat buttoned, the folder tucked close to my ribs, my steps steady, my breath measured, my heart not calm but focused. The usher at the entrance glanced at me, gave a small nod, didn't ask for a name. The soft piano echoed through the room as I slipped into the back row. The kind of music reserved for memorials where no one wants to be the first to cry. Margaret took the stage first, draped in black lace and pearls, performing her practiced sorrow. Her voice trembled just enough to seem human. Hannah was our first light. Her memory guides us still. I looked out over the crowd. None of them knew the truth. Not yet, but they would. I wasn't here to be seen, I was here to be remembered. For real this time. And when the moment of silence came, I would break it. I didn't need the program. I'd seen the script already. Margaret still in pearls. Ethan still pretending grief weighed heavier than guilt. But this time, I wasn't staying in the back row. This time, I walked. The banner above the stage read, "The first annual Hannah Lee Memorial Scholarship." Margaret stood at the podium, pearls nestled at her neck, eyes already misty. Hannah was more than a daughter. She was light. She was grace. Her absence is a wound that will never fully heal. The applause was soft, polite. Ethan followed, stiff in his blazer, holding a folded piece of paper like it weighed more than he could carry. She always believed in second chances, in helping others. This scholarship, it's what she would have wanted. I stood at the back, black coat and folder in hand, invisible, until I wasn't. The principal stepped up and requested a moment of silence. The lights dimmed, heads bowed, and I walked. One step, then another. The echo of my boots on the hardwood floor broke through the hush, slow and deliberate. Click, click, click. Gasps, phones lifted, whispers bloomed. Margaret's eyes locked onto mine, widening in recognition. She stumbled back, one hand flying to her chest. Ethan's mouth hung open, the paper slipping from his fingers. "Is that? No, it can't be. She's dead." "She's not." I climbed the steps without looking at them, took the mic. "I heard I died, but I'm here to correct the story." The room held its breath. I opened the folder and pulled out copies of my lease, pay stubs, passport stamps, legal filings. One by one, I held them up for all to see. "I've been alive this whole time. While they told you I was gone, they used my name, my story, my silence." I turned to face my mother. "You filed my death. You signed a lie and built a shrine from it." Then to Ethan, "You spoke about honor while spending the money people gave to mourn me." A murmur rippled through the audience. Cameras blinked red, capturing the moment. I let it sit, knowing the weight of the truth was heavier than any applause. "You didn't lose me." You erased me, but now I'm back. I placed the documents down, clean, precise, then stepped back from the mic. The silence was deeper than any applause. Margaret sat frozen. Ethan looked pale, the ghost they thought they buried staring them down. And there I stood, in the spotlight, the girl they buried, back from the dead. The video hit 100,000 views by midnight. I didn't post it. Someone in the audience did. Just 10 minutes of raw footage. No edits. No voiceovers, just the truth. The caption read, "The girl they buried came back." By morning, GoFundMe had frozen the account. Comments were locked. Funds under investigation. A local reporter requested an interview, but I declined. Margaret issued a clarification statement on Facebook. We were misinformed. There was confusion. A tragic misunderstanding. No one bought it. The post was flooded with comments. You filed her death. How do you misunderstand a funeral? By the end of the day, the post was deleted, so was her account. Ethan texted me that night. You were never supposed to come back. I stared at the message, then deleted it without typing a word. No reply, no explanation, no more noise. I didn't need revenge. This was enough. My death certificate was torn in half across a lawyer's desk. 2 signatures, 1 stamp. That's all it took to bring me back. Legally, I existed again, but emotionally, I had already begun long before that. I didn't go back to my old town, didn't visit the house I once cleaned every Sunday, didn't return to the church where they held my memorial. Some ghosts aren't meant to haunt, some are meant to leave. I moved to a quieter city, took a job with a non-profit that helps people reclaim stolen identities. I taught workshops, sat with strangers who had once been erased, just like I had. One day, after a seminar, a girl lingered near the door, maybe 18, shaky voice, wide eyes. You're Hannah Lee, right? Your story saved my life. I didn't know what to say, so I smiled gently. No, you saved your own. I just showed up. I walk more now, take photos again, let myself laugh when something's funny, not just when it's polite. And when people ask about my family, I say nothing, not because I'm hiding, but because some names no longer live inside me. They buried me for convenience, but I returned by choice, and I'll never let them write my ending again. This isn't just a story about being declared dead, it's about reclaiming your voice when the world decides you're easier to forget. If you've ever felt erased, you're not alone. Leave a comment, or just write still.